Grid tonight, Pecco Bagnaia is parting ways with Ducati, who will replace him alongside Marc Marquez at the Ducati Factory Team. The 2026 Indianapolis 500 champion is leaving Meyer Shank Racing. Where could Felix Rosenqvist be going next, and is he taking a huge risk? Formula E is set to host 21 races in 13 cities next season. What does that say about the series' growth, and what does E-Prix Unleashed mean? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lavin. With me tonight is Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Welcome back, Josh. Throughout the show, leave your comments and questions in the chat for us to display, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. I know we've had Matthew Burrow working really hard on his NASCAR recap from San Diego, and Isha Bajwa yesterday we got her recap up from the IndyCar race at Road America, talking about that turbulent lap one from Christian Lundgaard, going from last to first, which will probably be one of the hots, from the racing weekend. And before we get going, a quick hello from Omi. Thank you, Omi, for filling in for Josh. Whenever you're needed, we really appreciate you, Omi. I hope you enjoy tonight's show watching instead of being on the air commentating. And with that said, take away with top story this evening, Josh.
Thank you very much, Kirby. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks, isn't it? We had Le Mans 2 weeks ago with their sessions, and then the week after, I got sick during Le Mans. I had a bad tooth, and even though it's healed up now and it's not giving me any pain, I'm on the waiting list to have it taken out, and then hopefully I'll be up and running. It's actually the opposite side to what it was a couple of years ago. So thanks, Amy, for filling in, and also for leading the Le Mans coverage and the Formula One race in Barcelona as well. I was not a happy bunny sitting at the side of the commentary box, not talking about it, but Omi and the team did a brilliant job, and nice to be back. And I just want to start, before we said tonight as well, my thoughts as well are with Matt after all these horrible things he's had going on at the moment as well. And I can't wait to have him back on the show in a few weeks' time as well. So let's start with some interesting news that's kicked off earlier on today. MotoGP silly season kicked into another gear as the Ducati Factory Team announced that they are parting ways with Pecco Bagnaia at the end of the 2026 season. Now, Bagnaia has spent the last 8 seasons with Ducati and 6 with the factory team. Now, during his tenure with the organisation, Bagnaia has claimed 2 world championships, 31 wins, 63 podiums, and 28 pole positions. In 2022 and 2023, Bagnaia was on top of the MotoGP world after scoring back-to-back titles. Although he didn't get a third consecutive world championship in 2024, he was in a close championship battle with Jorge Martin throughout the year and settled for runner-up. However, his tenure with the Ducati Factory Team took a turn in the wrong direction last year after the arrival of Marc Marquez. Now, we saw that Marquez have one of the most incredible seasons ever and solidified himself as Ducati's #1 rider, as Bagnaia struggled with his bike and failed to live up to the expectations. Now, some of those struggles carried into this year, despite winning last Saturday's sprint race in Czechia and a streak of 4 consecutive podiums entering this weekend's race at Assen. Now, the Ducati Corsa general manager, Gigi Dall'Igna, said that it's not easy to recognize and understand when a relationship has run its course, but believes the deep mutual affection between both parties will be a key in ending the partnership on a high note. Now, with Bagnaia out of the door, Ducati also announced that they'll be replacing him with KTM's Pedro Acosta alongside Marquez at the factory team. Now, aligning with Marquez's new contract extension that you'll talk about later in your section as well, Kobe, Ducati signed Acosta to a 2-year deal throughout the 2028 season. Now, when Acosta entered MotoGP in 2024 with KTM, many considered him to be a super rookie after winning the Moto3 title in 2021 and the Moto2 title in 2023. Now, in his 3rd full season of MotoGP competition, Acosta is still searching for his first Grand Prix victories after numerous podium and runner-up finishes, plus the sprint win he had in Thailand earlier on this year. Now, Gigi Dall'Igna added that they wanted to sign a young and fast rider with the belief that Acosta will help them grow as they develop him into a fully mature rider. Graphic courtesy of the Ducati Factory Team. Well, Kobe, it's sort of the worst kept secret that Pecco was going to be leaving. But did the departure of Pecco Bagnaia seem inevitable, given how he is, his form has sadly dropped off, and Ducati is making the right decision, you could say, to Pedro Acosta with Marc Marquez. These two have had battles on track this year throughout the sprints and Grand Prix.
Well, starting with the Pecco Bagnaia part of this situation, you're right, Josh. It did seem inevitable that they would be parting ways at some point. And earlier this season, we were having such a slow news week. We even toyed around with the idea of coming up with a Pecco Bagnaia segment called "The Rise and Fall of Pecco Bagnaia." We never got around to that because our news cycle filled in, thankfully. But that just shows you how much Pecco Bagnaia has been struggling with Ducati. I remember when he won those, back-to-back world championships, especially that spectacular championship battle a couple of years ago with Jorge Martin. They were back and forth every single week, and it was just so spectacular to watch. And that's the Pecco Bagnaia, that we all grew to know and love. And then, Marc Marquez arrived, and then all of a sudden, it's like Pecco Bagnaia. I'm not gonna say he fell completely off a cliff, but he was not, the same Pecco Bagnaia we saw during that 2-year championship run. When Marc Marquez was out front, doing Marc Marquez things, Pecco Bagnaia was struggling, trying to match his teammates' pace and performance. And then we saw towards the end of last year, Pecco was kind of out to lunch in many respects because he was at one point he was running like at the very back of the pack, and it was like really confusing. Like, you have what's supposed to be, the top bike in the entire MotoGP World Championship, and you're running outside of the points. You're running at the back of the pack. Like, what in the world is going on with Pecco Bagnaia? And we obviously saw some clashes, between him and the team that spilled over into the public eye. And if you look at Pecco's social media pages, he talked about how him and the team, had fallen out and all of that. And he felt like that he needed to make a change. And I know it's been rumored that he's going to be signing with Aprilia for next season. So if that turns out to be true, it'll certainly be quite a departure from what he's done with Ducati. And Josh, you mentioned the general manager for Ducati. Of course, I went through and read his full statement, and he was talking about while obviously Pecco and the team, they haven't seen eye to eye for a while now, especially since his drop in form is been a lot of ugly things going on between him and the team due to frustration and lack of performance on his part. Despite all of that, the general manager for Ducati Corsa, he was talking about how they took in this young Pecco Bagnaia when he was just a kid, basically, and they wanted to build their program around him, and they were able to finally get back on the top step of the podium and win not one but 2 World Riders Championships with them. So they were able to accomplish their goals, but unfortunately, every relationship run its course, and it seemed like that this one, just ran its course, just after a handful of seasons. Several seasons, and it just was time for a change. It's unfortunate that this is happening, but with Marc Marquez riding as well as he was riding, and Pecco's drop off of form, and then the struggles and disagreements, it just seemed like it was the right time for both sides to part ways. And then the second part of the question about Pedro Acosta. I think a lot of people believe that Pedro Acosta has the ability to be a future MotoGP world champion. No, it's just a few seasons in right now. Still hasn't broken through with that Grand Prix victory. I would not be surprised if he earns a big breakthrough by the end of the year before leaving KTM. But if it doesn't happen this year, I think it'll definitely happen at some point when he's racing with Ducati, because I think there's a lot of upside with Pedro Acosta. And as I mentioned, Josh, at the end of that statement, he hasn't completely developed into a full mature MotoGP rider yet. So his best years are certainly ahead of him if he's able to perform better than Pecco has alongside Marc Marquez. I think Pedro Acosta, could be a good choice for them. But as we know, when it comes to being teammates with someone like Marc Marquez, Marc Marquez could end up being what you call a teammate killer, right? Kind of like in Formula One, you see Max Verstappen. It seems like whoever is teammates with Max ends up sinking. And Marc Marquez, he has nerves of steel, and that's a very tough guy to have as a teammate, because Mark, when he's not injured and when he's on one, he's out, he's out front, and he's going to be extremely tough to beat. So Pedro Acosta, he's going to have to be very strong mentally to go up against someone like Marc Marquez, because it's very rare you see Marc Marquez get rattled by any rider out there. As Adam Lemery says in the comments, being Marc Marquez's teammate isn't easy, but Pedro Acosta has some huge shoes to fill. I think you're muted, Josh.
Yeah, sorry. Just to try not to get copyrighted with some things that's happening in the background. Yes, absolutely. Marc Marquez is 100% a killer of teammates. Just look at his own brother. As well, from when he was teammates with him twice, once at Honda, admittedly only for a few races because of the injury, and then at the full season he had with Grassini. Then look at everybody else that's been flying by. It's a nightmare waiting to happen. It's a poison chalice being a teammate to a multiple world champion. You would have thought if anybody could have done it, it was Pecco Bagnaia. But you might remember, I mentioned ages and ages and ages ago that as soon as Marc Marquez gets on the factory Ducati, the likes of Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia are going to be shown up for how much of an actual talent they claim to be. Because when you've got Marc Marquez on a prime bike fast, nobody can catch him. I stand by that, even though, the likes of Juan Mir, Fabio Quartararo, Jorge Martin, and Pecco Bagnaia, they've all won world championships when Marquez has been off injured, but Marc came back. He's won the championship. This year, it looks like it's going to go between Bezzecchi and Martin. But again, Martin, you could argue this is his first opportunity to prove why he can be a defending champion and a multiple champion. Whereas with Bezzecchi, well, the weekend kind of wrote itself, didn't he? Aprilia are crumbling. Marc's only 40 points back now. He's very much coming up. And there was something I saw that was a brilliant stat. Lewis Hamilton and Marc Marquez, both going for an 8th world championship in a Premier class, both about 41 points behind the leaders of who are both teammates who don't like each other, who were dominating at the start of the season and now starting to fall with reliability issues. The MotoGP and F1, they're on parallel lines this season. It's very interesting where you pay it both on. And Liberty Media must be rubbing their hands together thinking, we've got a dual crown here and everything's just like, it's perfect. So honestly, yeah, it's a sort of a pyramid this year of the top of motorcycle, the top of single seaters to sort of parallel how great it's going to be. I can't wait. It's a long rounded answer to that, but it is going to be a lot of fun, I think. Shall we get on, Kobe, to the next phase and move away from MotoGP and back over to IndyCar? Because this, nobody saw coming once again. This morning, Meyer Shank Racing announced that the Indianapolis 500 champion, Felix Rosenqvist, will depart the team at the end of the 2026 NTT IndyCar Series season. Now, Rosenqvist is having one of his best IndyCar seasons yet, who currently sits 6th in the points, entering Mid-Ohio, and won the biggest race in the world last month. Despite MSR showing up to the track each week looking competitive and benefiting from the technical alliance with Chip Ganassi Racing, Rosenqvist has decided to accept an offer from a rival team in the IndyCar paddock. Now, according to Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com, in his latest silly season report, Andretti Global and Arrow McLaren were the two teams hoping to land Rosenqvist's services. Now, in a statement, Meyer Shank Racing said it's unfortunate Rosenqvist decided to move on, given everything they've accomplished together in the last 3 seasons, and wished him nothing but the best as they hope to finish 2026 on a high note. And identify the right driver for the number 60 Honda in 2027. Photos taken here by Travis Hinkle from Penske Entertainment. Well, Kobe, is Felix Rosenqvist taking a huge risk leaving Meyer Shank Racing? And do we believe also there's rumors about McLaren? That's an interesting little lineup to go back there.
Like right before we entered the Road America race weekend, Marshall Pruitt had a silly season report with a whole lot of nuggets and drivers who could be on the move. And there's a lot to unpack there. We actually don't have enough time in this show tonight to talk about all of the silly season moves that we could see in IndyCar this season. And I will say, grass is not always greener on the other side. Felix Rosenqvist, he's entitled to do whatever he wants, especially since he won the Indianapolis 500, for goodness sake. He's always going to be known as Felix Rosenqvist, Indy 500 champion. And given his form during the month of May, the speed he showed in practice, qualifying, and then that daring move on the outside on the final lap of the race, it showed that Felix Rosenqvist's value was going to increase during this free agency period. We obviously don't know which team he signed with yet, but it looks like it's going to be either one of the two that Marshall mentioned in his wonderful silly season report. But Honestly, Josh, I know this was rumored, in this silly season report, and then we heard it throughout the weekend at Road America, and now it's been made official that Felix Rosenqvist is going to leave Meyer Shank Racing. He's going to go to one of the two teams that are mentioned. But I do think that he could be taking a huge risk here because, with Meyer Shank Racing, you're having a technical alliance with Chip Ganassi Racing, and who's dominating the IndyCar Series right now for Chip Ganassi Racing? Alex Palou. And if you're aligned with the most dominant team in the IndyCar Series for the last several years, that's certainly going to be a really good seat for any driver to be in. So Felix, I believe, is taking a risk, to leave a good situation with Meyer Shank Racing. And also, since it's one of the smaller teams in the IndyCar paddock, I believe you have a lot more runway and you have a lot more room to make mistakes or I guess not perform up to standards in a way compared to driving for one of the big teams, because we know Andretti Global and Arrow McLaren, they're one of the four big teams in the IndyCar Series alongside Team Penske and Chip Ganassi Racing. So if Felix goes to one of those bigger teams, he's going to have the expectations that he did not have at Meyer Shank Racing. And when you look at most of the IndyCar races, those top four teams I just mentioned, those are really the only teams who win more times than not. And then the other teams, they might sneak in a win here or there. So I guess by going to one of the top four teams, Felix would increase his chances, of winning more often. But at the same time, if you don't perform with higher expectations, he could put himself in a not so good situation. I just feel like where he is at Meyer Shank Racing was a perfect situation for him. We saw what happened, before when he was at Arrow McLaren. I feel like he wasn't necessarily treated the best when he was at Arrow McLaren. So that would be a head scratcher if he replaces Nolan Siegel in the number 6 Chevrolet, because it just seemed like they were just stringing him along. And the only reason he was in that car before was because, they needed someone to be in that car and they didn't necessarily want him in the car. So I would not understand a move back to Arrow McLaren in that situation and got Andretti Global, replacing Marcus Ericsson. That would certainly be an interesting choice because we all assume that, Marcus would probably be out at the end of the year. So if they announce that soon, that would not be a surprise. Given the fact that Marcus has not really been a good fit at Andretti Global. I know he's had a few good runs here or there, but when you drive an Andretti car, there's a lot of pressure for you to perform better than he's been performing during his time with Andretti. But we thought the plan was going to be you run Ericsson this year, and then you replace him with the last year's NX champion, Dennis Hauger, who's with Del Corn Racing this year. And that would be a quite a change of what we expected to happen. And if that's the case, then Hauger looked like he might get a second year at Del Corn Racing to continue to develop, because Andretti, they usually like to farm their drivers out before they bring them to the Andretti senior team per se, let them make mistakes. I remember when Kyle Kirkwood was at when he was an Andretti driver coming up through the ranks, they had him at AJ Foyt Racing, let him make mistakes as a rookie and learn the IndyCar Series before they put him in an Andretti car with all of the pressure. And we know Felix Rosenqvist, if he goes to replace Ericsson in a number 28 Honda, he's going to be facing the same pressure that Marcus Ericsson faced and the same pressure that the previous occupant of that car faced, Roman Grosjean. When you're in an Andretti car, Felix, he's not going to just be expected to win the Indianapolis 500. He's going to expect to be competitive on the road in the street course as well and be a championship contender on a more consistent basis. Where Meyer Shank Racing, I don't think they necessarily expect you in a Meyer Shank car to be up there competing for race wins every single week and all of that. So I feel like if he wanted a longer leash, and a lot of room for mistakes or lack of performance, Meyer Shank Racing probably would have been the better choice for him to stay long term. But when you have teams like Andretti Global, Aaron McLaren, Josh, we all know TWG, all of the money they have, and Aaron McLaren as well. McLaren has a lot of those two teams have a lot of money, and I know it'd be hard for Meyer Shank Racing to match, contract offers, because TWG, McLaren, they can offer you riches that you could not find, from a Meyer Shank Racing. So we'll see if grass is greener on the other side for Felix Rosenqvist. But given the situation he's in right now, the Meyer Shank Racing team is performing as well as it ever has. You see, they almost stole one at Road America on Sunday if it wasn't for Marcus Armstrong's engine fell in the closing lap. So that team is really performing well and matching its alliance partner, Chip Ganassi Racing, in some respects. So I feel like he's in a good situation right now at Meyer Shank Racing. And if he goes to Andretti, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to perform. And if he doesn't perform, he could end up, in a lesser ride later on, or worse, or completely out of the IndyCar series at some point. So it's just a huge risk. And then, like I say, I don't understand why you would even consider going back to Aaron McLaren since they didn't really treat him right the first time. So I'm honestly a little bit confused as to why he would leave Meyer Shank Racing.
It has to be cash. It has to be the cash is king. I don't understand why he would take the risk and willingly move from a team that's just giving you the Indy 500 and quite comfortably, I might add. That late red flag, we were like, is this going to happen? No. Rosenqvist to take it was really strong. And at the line, come on. I don't know. I can only think about it's been a lot of money. Yeah, this is crazy. Can't wait to see he gets Felix Rosenqvist. To be fair, Rosenqvist was on it quite a lot during the whole month of May. It wasn't just a flash in the pan. So whoever he ends up with, it's a genius at setting up the cars for the biggest race of the year. So I'm looking forward to this. If it is McLaren, then maybe, he can go head-to-head with denying Pato Award for another year. Speaking of another year, yesterday, the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship schedule for season 13 was revealed. Now, the 2026-27 season will feature a record-breaking 21 races in 13 different cities. Starting on December the 18th and 19th, the Gen 4 era of Formula E will begin with a double-header in Jeddah. Now, assuming conditions in that region are safe for travel and racing, then, of course, the electric racing series will return to Mexico City on January 16th, 2027. On February 6th, Formula E will head to Austin, Texas for the first time to compete at the Circuit of the Americas in a second race weekend in the United States. A couple of weeks later, Formula E will then be back at the Miami International Autodrome on February 20th. The Sao Paulo E-Prix will now take place on March 20th, while the Sanya E-Prix moves up in the schedule to April 17th. With Berlin kicking off a stretch of doubleheader race weekends to end the season as the Tempelhof Airport Street Circuit prepares to host Formula E on May 8th and 9th. The Monaco doubleheader will take place the following week on May 15th and 16th. And next season, Formula E's annual race weekend in the United Kingdom won't take place at the XL London circuit, but instead it shifts to Brands Hatch in Kent on May the 29th and 30th. Zandvoort is also joining the schedule on June 18th and 19th before a return to Madrid at Jarama on June 26th and 27th. Then it's back to China for the Shanghai E-Prix, scheduled in for July 10th and 11th. Then the season finale weekend will go to the Tokyo E-Prix on July 24th and 25th in the summer of 2027. Reminder, that is also a night race, so a bit friendlier for those of you in America and in Europe. Formula E co-founder and chief championship officer Alberto Longo called this the biggest and most ambitious calendar yet, with fastest tracks, fiercer competition, and the highly anticipated Gen 4 car, graphic courtesy of the FIA. Well, Kobe, looking at that, what are some of the biggest takeaways from the 2026-27 Formula E schedule?
I think there's a lot of takeaways from that schedule. I'll be honest, Josh. I did not anticipate such a large schedule from Formula E next season. I think it just shows how much this series has grown over the years. It's really crazy because I remember how many years ago, well over a decade ago, when they held that first race in Beijing. I remember staying up late to watch it. And then I'm thinking, this is really interesting. But I know a lot of the drivers from, let's say, sports cars or drivers who used to race in Formula One. And I'm thinking, this is just a new concept. This will just be around maybe like a season or 2 or 3, and then it will be gone. But it's really crazy. We're entering season 13 of Formula E, and there's so much excitement heading into next season. Everyone's excited about the new Gen 4 cars, and I guess no better way to break in a new era than having a big calendar, 21 races, 13 cities. That's extremely impressive that this series, has gotten so much interest from around the world. And although, you have 13 cities next season, there's still even more cities who would beg to have a Formula E race because the series, is just really, really popular worldwide. And looking at the schedule right now, I guess for Jeddah, we'll say that's TBA, right? Or because we don't really know what's going to happen there. I wonder what backup round they could have in place for that in case that ends up not happening. Good to see Autodrome Hermanos Rodriguez back on the calendar. Always enjoy that. But the biggest surprise, we got 2 races now in the United States. I did not expect to see Circuit of the Americas on the Formula E calendar. That was a huge surprise to me, and I think it was a huge surprise to everyone else because this was kept very tight-lipped, and like literally, I didn't see any rumors about this at all. But it's really cool that COTA is going to host another major championship. I think out of all of our series that we cover in the grid ranking, that the only series that has not raced at Circuit of the Americas is World Rally Championship, and the only reason why is because it's impossible to have a World Rally Championship race at Circuit of the Americas. So it's really cool that we've had 6 of our 7 series competing at COTA, and also some of our grid EPI series as well raced at COTA, like GT World Challenge America, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and later on this summer we're going to have the Lone Star Le Mans, the World Endurance Championship, is going to race at COTA. So just about almost every single major motorsports racing series in the world have raced at Circuit of the Americas, and now Formula E is joining the list. So really happy to see this happen. And also the one thing I like about the Formula E calendar is that we're going to be going to like different regions, like back to back instead of like flying, instead of like jetting across the world, for different races, because like we start off in the Middle East, and then we go to the Americas. You start in Mexico City, and then you go up into Texas, and then you go across to Miami, and then to Brazil. Take care of North and South America there. And then interesting to see Sonia moving up in the calendar. Berlin's been a staple of the Formula E calendar for a very long time. Glad to see that back, along with Monaco and Brands Hatch. I'm not sure how people. I know Josh, you'll probably tell me how you feel about this when I'm done, giving my answer here. But I'm very interested to see that the XL circuit is not going to be coming back to the United Kingdom. I know they've been on the calendar for a long time now, and and not hosting the Formula E finale either in the UK. So Brands Hatch really like that track, and I'll be interested to see how the Gen 4 cars get along there. But I'm surprised to see the XL circuit not there anymore, and that the UK's Formula E round is going to move to the Brands Hatch. I think Zandvoort is going to be a good addition to the series, as we know is going to be going off the Formula 1 calendar. So in order to keep Zandvoort in operation, we're still going to see racing there, and I guess nobody yet to invite Formula E, and then back to Madrid, Shanghai, and then Tokyo hosting the season finale. But Josh, when I look at the Formula E schedule for next year, I think it looks really good, and really excited to see some of the new venues we have on there. And also really like to know, how do you feel about replacing XL circuit next season with a move to Brands Hatch, which is a very popular track in the UK?
I have not yet been to the XL. By the way, there's some breaking IndyCar news. No, I was right. NASCAR news. If you want to take a look at Kobe, I can run through it later, or maybe that's a next week's story. But I have yet to go to the XL in London. I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, doing that this year, as I'll be trackside for the season finale, and will what now be the end of Gen 3 and the final of a race at XL. From the colleagues that I work with in Formula E, they have said that it's one of the best venues, but it is too small. It's too small even for Gen 3. So for Gen 4, it's an absolute no-no. We could race there. It's right to go to Brands Hatch. I've been to Brands Hatch twice. I've done multiple hours walking up and down that hill. And let me tell you something. Brands Hatch is a very small paddock. You won't be able to get much fan engagement close to the drivers. It's very old school. The outer paddock alongside the circuit, where you actually go in the commentary box area, that could just about host it, but it's packed out on a touring car weekend. For a Formula E weekend, I'm imagining it's going to be a sellout, and I'm imagining it's going to be very busy. I am thankful that I will have a media pass, and I don't have to deal with that, and I can go straight into the media centre and do everything there. But if I do get a commentary box, which I think I probably will, I have to go back under the circuit, up 3 flights of stairs, into that melee, up right to the top into where the commentary box is, and it's very hot in there. So it's great for a visual standpoint. It's easy to get to, but it's I'm trying to imagine. Brands Hatch has not hosted an FIA World Championship in 40 years. 1985. Yeah, it was that Mansell victory. Maybe 86. But 40 years since it last hosted a FIA World Championship. It hosted A1GP in '09, and the last year it ran, as Matt White, probably watching the show tonight, knows. And it was just pushing the realms of that. Touring cars pushes its realm. The amount of packed and busy it gets is unbelievable on their 2 weekends a year. It's doable, but it's going to require modifications because Brands Hatch is fast. And if we're using the Grand Prix layout, we need to make sure the gravel traps are deeper so it stops the Formula E cars. There's sections that need a bit of work, and if this is the new home of Formula E, make it the permanent home and make some work changes to Brands Hatch. If this is a stopgap, then don't go to Brands, go to Donington or Snetterton. I'd argue Snetterton actually is a lot easier. And that's not just because, I've got people there who know the circuit. It's because I've been to Snetterton a couple of times. I've seen how easy it is to host a Grand Prix layout there. So really, I don't know why we're at Brands. It's the closest you can get to London, I suppose. But I would have said Snetterton or Donington as they're the two other biggest circuits on the calendar. Donington seemed to be a natural. I don't know why we haven't. It's got the place. And yeah, it's weird. Adam says as well, 2 stops here in the USA. Love Brands Hatch on the schedule as well. Legend Circuit in the UK. I honestly, again, work with people inside Formula E. I work in Formula E as well with media departments, and nobody saw Austin coming. Everybody saw Zandvoort coming, but nobody saw this. So, yeah, that's a surprise. They kept that one quite close to the chest. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. So let's get into the nitty-gritty about the schedule, because we've talked about how the calendar looks. Let's take a look at what the racing is going to look like when we get there, because to go along with more races, we'll also have a new Formula E race format. Now, starting with qualifying, drivers who reach the dual stages during qualifying will receive championship points, with the pole sitter receiving 4 points, 3 points for second place, 2 points for third, and fourth place, followed by a single point for fifth through to 8th position. Now, when it comes to the single race weekends on the calendar, we'll have free practice 1, free practice 2, qualifying, and the E-Prix, all as normal. But then on the double header weekends, which there are a few of, we'll only have 1 free practice session, 1 qualifying, and something new then on the Saturday race, or the first race on a Friday if you're in Jeddah, called the E-Prix Unleashed. We'll discuss more about that in a moment. The second race is the doubleheader. It'll be a free practice session of qualifying, and then the E-Prix, as per normal. Now, with this new E-Prix Unleashed, Formula E will debut a 30-minute sprint race that will require teams to race in their highest downforce configuration, which will give the drivers more grip and the ability to attack corners at a higher rate of speed. Attack mode will be condensed to a 6-minute window, and pit boost won't be available. Now, the E-Prix will be 45 minutes long on the second day of the event, and also on single header weekends. So we've now reverted to what we had in Gen 2, where we will no longer have laps, but it will be 45 minutes in length, with the teams being required to run in low downforce configuration to reduce drag and maximize energy management. Attack mode will be extended to 8 minutes, and there will be a mandatory pit boost stop graphic as well, courtesy here of Formula E. For more information, link to this article is in the video description below. Gets complicated, doesn't it? But finally, we've got pit boost at every single event. That's going to be interesting to see how it works out. We've got a new sprint race format, something that Jack Giamana and Jack Pickering have been lobbying about for a while over on Formula E Zone as well. So, Kobe, do you like the changes Formula E is making to the race weekend format to kick off the Gen 4 era?
I said, well, start off, the funny thing about this is if you've been watching Grid Tonight the last few years, we've been really anti-sprint races. Like when Formula One was announcing all these sprint races, we didn't like it. When MotoGP announced that they were doing sprint races every single race weekend, we didn't like it. But for some reason, when it comes to this Formula E format, looking at the way they have it set up, I'm actually okay with sprint races for Formula E. I feel like that this format will work really well for this series. And the reason why I say that is I'll pull this back up on the screen here. I think it's really cool that we're gonna see the cars in 2 different configurations. I think that's gonna really challenge the drivers because some drivers have different driving styles, and and they'll really have to adapt to this. Like when it comes to high downforce, we have drivers who will excel at that, but not so much in the lower downforce, and vice versa. We'll see some drivers excel in low downforce, and they won't be able to perform as well in the high downforce package. And just to say, that's only for the doubleheader race weekend. So I think it should be quite exciting once we have these new cars in the high downforce pack where they can just attack the corners and go flat out. You don't have to worry about managing the energy or anything like that. You can just go flat out for 30 minutes and just focus on getting the race win. And I think that's what fans really want to see. They don't want to see they don't want to see a 30-minute race. We're just managing your energy until the very end like that, where you can just go flat out. You can see hard racing and daring overtaking. So hopefully the E-Prix Unleashed for the race one is going to be something completely different. And the way they do the double headers right now, I think this could definitely make the first race of the weekend more exciting, because when we have our current Formula E double headers, for the most part, you basically see the same race on Sunday that you saw on Saturday, and I think with this format, you'll see something entirely different. You'll see aggression on Saturday, and you'll probably have a lot more storylines to talk about after the fact, and then you'll see your traditional Formula E race on the Sunday, with the pit boost. So after seeing what they're planning to do with the formats with the E-Prix Unleashed sprint race, in high downforce, and then the Sunday race with the pit boost, the longer attack mode and low downforce, I think it's a good thing that Formula E is trying something new, and I think the fans will more than likely receive this in a positive way, because with the double headers you'll see two completely different races instead of the same one.
No, I'm with you. I'm completely with you. I think Formula E have needed to change up a bit on the doubleheader weekends, because the only difference is we don't have pit boost on the second race, and Gen 3 has been too monopoly style. It's been too much like a peloton race, where it's just format, go. This is going to really liven it up, and they've done it cleverly by saying, oh yeah, we're having sprint races, but it's going to replace on doubleheader weekends, and one race is going to be different to the other. So it's clever. It's still a round of the championship, but we now have E-Prix and E-Prix Unleashed, which means if you still want the traditional E-Prix on the circuit, you're going to have it, but now we're also going to have a double. I like that. I do, because it's not like it's round 13, part 1 and 2. It'll be round 13, round 14, etc. It will be individual rounds, and it will be 4 points. So I like it. It's a good strategy. I think maybe, arguably, you could see Formula One try and change this up, and how they do their sprint races changes a little bit, that we have a different matter, like it's half distance or 75%, and it changed up a bit if they want to do sprints. We have got a sprint at Silverstone, not this weekend, but the next weekend when we were there. Let's see how that goes, because the last time we had a 121, it didn't work. So Formula One keeps moving sprints around to different tracks, whereas Formula E has now said, okay, we'll do it at the tracks that we know we'll have great racing at, and change the format. Perfect. Can't wait. The only thing I've got about the calendar, go on, Cappy.
And I said something else that I like from the format is that we're now going to be awarding points to the top qualifiers like this. And as you mentioned, Josh, it's become like Peloton style racing and Gen 3, and we probably need to break out the Formula E Wheel of Destiny again, because there's been like so much randomness happening again in this series, and with the new qualifying format. I mean, it's still gonna be the same format, all the dual stages and all of that with the knockout qualifyings. But I think it's good that we're gonna be awarding points to the top qualifiers, because I think, and I said this is not a knock on him, but Pepe Marti had quite a drive last weekend, coming from deep in the field to finish on the podium. I thought that was a remarkable drive, but but in this with this current car, you can have a bad qualifying day, start in the back, and still get up top and finish second. And in the Gen 4 era, I think I'm gonna like seeing, where you can basically, if it's a close championship battle, you can win or lose the championship based on how you qualify. I like the fact that Formula E is not going to require drivers to be perfect, in qualifying as well, where it's actually going to matter where you qualify, because now in Formula E, if you qualify like, oh, I'm qualified on the last row, be like, oh, whatever, I can just drive through the pack and get towards the front. Where in the new era, be like, yeah, I have to be on my game at all times, not just in the E-Prix Unleashed or the E-Prix. Be like, I have to perform in qualifying as well, because if you're not qualifying well, but you're racing well during the single race weekends or the double header race weekend with the E-Prix Unleashed. But if you're not doing it in qualifying, when those points add up at the end of the year in qualifying, that could make or break your chances in the championship. So I like that additional pressure on the drivers to go out there and perform in qualifying.
I think I've got it on the calendar. So what I was going to say was, did you have to organise the Brands Hatch E-Prix on the day of the Indy 500 and what could also be the Canadian Grand Prix? I mean, come on. I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to slot something in the morning so that we can have that. But that is going to be a really busy day for me as well. If I do end up going to Brands Hatch, I'll be doing the Brands Hatch E-Prix, followed then by the Indy 500, follow them by the Canadian Grand Prix, follow them by the Coke 600. I'm going to have to get an Airbnb, I reckon, because if I do this in a hotel, they're not going to be happy. But my God, that is going to be a long day. So yeah, well, it's a double header. Maybe I'll just do one day and then go back home on the Sunday. I'm not sure.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That the race at Brands Hatch was on the same day as the Indianapolis 500. It's really interesting that Indy 500 is almost in June next year. I know we always talk about the month of May, but it seems kind of weird the way the calendar falls next year, that it's going to be so late in the month of May. But yeah, it's gonna. And next year's on Memorial Day weekend, it's gonna be insanely busy with all of the racing we're gonna have going on. But yeah, I didn't even think of Brands Hatch being on the same weekend as the Indy 500. Yeah, it just might be a good idea for you to get an Airbnb.
Yeah, might have to. I've just had a thought actually as well. Now, May 31st is the Monday, but if we, God forbid, have a rain out, we could end up having the Indy 500 in June if we have to race on a Tuesday. That's a possibility we haven't had for a long, long time.
Yeah, hopefully the weather will be nice next year in the month of May, so we don't have to worry about that. I don't even know if the Indy 500 has ever been held in June, but I know it was held in August. That happened during COVID.
Yes, did it happen twice or just once?
I think it might have been once in 2020 when they had it behind closed doors when Sato won.
And then it was Le Mans was twice in August or September, one of the two.
Le Mans might have been in September of 2020.
I remember WEC was in such a state once. Correct me if I'm wrong, we've had 2 or 3 Le Mans in the space of one season. That's how dramatic it got to try and catch up. So yeah, I remember 2 Le Mans in one calendar year. It was not great. So let's move on to our third story of technically our fourth or fifth story of the evening with the amount we've covered. Starting in 2027, the World Motorsport Council has approved technical regulations for the World Rally Championships top category. Now, with the top category not in the healthiest placed, plans have been put in place to allow Rally 2 cars to compete for overall wins alongside the WRC 27 cars for the 2027 and 2028 seasons. Now, this decision has been made to... The decision to make this move was to increase the number of cars competing at the front of the field and provide a greater spectacle for fans as the new WRC 27 regulations are introduced. Now, Rally 2 cars will be fitted with something called a Rally 2-WRC- kit, which is kind of supporting a greater aerodynamic parity between the Rally 2 and the WRC 27. They are vastly different machines, as you can see, but the kit will be made up of a new homologated front fenders, a front bumper, and a rear aerodynamic device. Maximum cost, Euros 7,500. Now, Malcolm Wilson, OBE, the FIA Deputy President for Sport, said that by creating a pathway for Rally 2 cars to enter the top category, it will lead to larger fields, increasing the competition and help deliver a fantastic event. The graphic courtesy of the FIA. And you can click the link in the video description for additional information. Kind of feels like to me, Kobe, allowing F2 cars to win the Formula 1 field because, why not? So I'll answer on you for this one. Is this the right decision for WRC's future?
I said, well, if the car counts in the top category are going to be extremely low, it might be the only decision that they can make for a World Rally Championship's future. And before tonight's show, I had a conversation with our own Joe Samniego about this, as he follows World Rally Championship closer than anyone here at the Grid Network, and he shared some really good details about this story. He looked at the pros and the cons of it. I'm going to start off with the pros that Joe mentioned. He said that one of the main pros will be obviously to save WRC, because as of right now, Toyota Gazoo Racing is the only manufacturing team that have committed to the new WRC 27 regulations, and none of the other manufacturers, Hyundai and Ford, have committed to that yet. So if we're only going to have Toyotas out there, it might not be really exciting if we only have like 4 or 5 cars or whatever, just competing for the overall win in these rallies. So the goal would be to try to, expand the number of teams and maybe try to get those privateer teams, entering WRC's top category. And they could potentially, stop Toyota from dominating and just strengthen the top category where, where pick a winner, you may have 3, 4, 5 good options. And then when you have these, I guess juiced up Rally 2 cars, that's what I'll call them. I said, then they'll be able to, be competitive against those cars. But in that case, if Toyota is spending all this money on the WRC 27 cars next year, and then at a discounted price, I can just juice up my Rally 2 car. Like, what's the point of even building a WRC 27 car if you can just, compete in a Rally 2 car, at a much lower cost? So, so I'm not really sure what the future is going to hold for WRC 27 cars, but but the plan is to have these cars with Rally 2, grandfathered in for the next 2 years at least. I guess they're trying to, make sure that manufacturers, are going to be good and ready and have enough time for the top categories. So I guess once these 2 years are up after the 2028 season, then they'll decide to just scrap the juiced up Rally 2 cars, and then they'll just use the top category here on out. But obviously, one of the cons, of this situation would be how will the fan base view Rally 2 cars competing for the overall win and all of that. And wondering if the fans will view this as a downgrade and all of that. And as Josh, as you perfectly said, this would almost be like, let's speak hypothetical here. In the Formula One world, let's say, we lose 2 Formula One teams and we're down to an 18-car grid. And let's say Formula One, wants to have a 20-car grid at minimum. So in this case, let's say we're going to have Rodin and High Tech, 2 Formula 2 team. Let's say the FIA come up with this special kit that be like, we're going to allow these 2 teams to come into Formula One. They're not going to be F1 cars, but they're going to be F2 cars. And we're going to, we're going to give them this and that to put them on par with Formula One. They said they won't be out there, competing, for points or anything like that, but they'll be able to basically stay on pace, so we can reach our minimum or whatever to keep the grid size where we're at. So I guess that's certainly one of the cons of a situation like this. And looking at an article on Dirtfish, on Toyota's technical director Tom Fowler told them, it said in 2027 you can come with a new car with new regulations, or you can come with a Rally 2 car which is already homologated, and the power to weight ratio and the specification of these cars is very similar. Essentially, anybody going into a rally can win. And he also went on to say, once we see the number of cars which will hopefully arrive, and also the number of different drivers who will come back to the championship more consistently in the championship, I'm pretty sure the level of competition, the fight between the different drivers coming from different places will outweigh any loss of spectacle, from not using the WRC 27 cars. So there's certainly pros and cons of this. So you can, as I mentioned, pros of this, you can add more competition to the top category and all of that. And then, obviously one of the cons is like, you want to see the top, you want to see the top category going for the overall win. It also reminds me of the time when we tried to balance LMP2 cars and IMSA in the top category against the manufacturers. And, and then that was like a balance of performance headache, and trying to make sure these Rally 2 cars are on par with the WRC 27 cars. I'm not sure like what it's going to look like next year, since they're planning to do this. But since Hyundai and Ford have not committed to the new regulations yet, this could allow them to stay in the game. They can just use their Rally 2 car, add some different kit, and then they'll be good to go.
It's actually brought something back into my mind. The idea of Formula One using Formula 2 cars has happened before. 1952 and 1953, the Formula One World Championship actually was run under Formula 2 car regulations because Alfa Romeo withdrew from the sport, and it left a shortage of competitive F1 cars. So that's why we shifted everything over to that of a Formula 2 specification. So if you think about it, if you look at the world champions of 1952 and 1953, 1952 was Alberto Ascari, 1953 Alberto Ascari. You kind of have to wonder, don't you, if he can be counted as a Formula 1 world champion or a Formula 2 world champion. I personally put Alberto Ascari as one of the greatest drivers of all time, in his pale blue helmet and pale blue visor as well. Well, it's kind of a helmet back then, wasn't it? But yeah, just fantastic. That it's just a little stat there because as of current times, Alberto Ascari and Michael Schumacher, Ferrari's only back-to-back world champions in their entire history. So it's an incredible stat. And another great stat actually as well, his father as well, I'm just trying to remember who he was. I'm trying to remember. I know his father, Antonio Ascari, he was killed when he was 36 years old and in a racing accident. And guess what? As well, he died in the 1925 French Grand Prix. Ascari was killed in a Ferrari at Monza in 1955 when he was 36 years old. Wow. Just a little bit of a parallel. But yeah, I need to do a history on this. It's incredible the amount of stuff you can get into. The rabbit hole of motorsport is very deep. And we should probably have a corner with history section. Now, with Matt White on extended leave, we're going to have the latest Grid EPI update at a later time. But right now, here's Kobe with the rest of the week's headlines.
Yeah, that's right. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. Yeah, I already alluded to this earlier, but Marc Marquez has signed a 2-year contract extension to stay with the Ducati Factory Team in MotoGP. Marquez will continue to wear Ducati red for the 2027 and 2028 seasons after a spectacular debut 2025 season with the Factory Team and continued success this year. In his first year as a Ducati Factory rider, Marquez won 14 sprint races, 11 Grand Prix races, locked up the championship with 5 race weekends remaining, and set the all-time record of 545 points scored in a single MotoGP season. This year, Marquez is on a tear after coming back from injury, who was 100 points back a month ago, and now he's currently 40 points out of the championship lead. Marquez said when he joined Ducati, he was convinced that this was the most competitive project and believes this is the right place for him to continue achieving more ambitious goals. Photo courtesy of Ducati. Colic Racing signed Ryan Newman to its free agent driver program in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Newman will drive the number 25 Ram 1500 at North Wilkesboro Speedway. The driver nicknamed Rocket Man has a long history with Dodge, so teaming up with Ram for this one-off at the historic short track in Wilkes County is a homecoming. During his Cup Series career, Newman earned 13 of his 18 wins on a Dodge, including 43 of his 51 poles. Newman said it's special returning to a brand he had so much success with early in his career, and racing at North Wilkesboro is always cool. Graphic courtesy of Colic Racing. And bear with me as I get everything working here. Okay. This Sunday, when the NASCAR Cup Series coverage shifts to TNT Sports, the In-Season Challenge returns for the second consecutive year. The 2026 In-Season Challenge kicks off at Sonoma Raceway this weekend. Then we'll have additional rounds at Chicagoland Speedway, Echo Park Speedway, and North Wilkesboro Speedway before crowning the 2026 In-Season Challenge champion on Sunday, July 26th at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. With 32 drivers set to battle in a bracket-style tournament similar to March Madness, this year's bracket game on NASCAR.com allows users to create leagues. The entire team here at Grid Network invites you to join our league and compete against members of our team. Link to our in-season challenge league is in the video description below, but if you see the QR code in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you can access the link to our league that way with your mobile device. And once you click on the link and create your account or sign in to join our league, the password to join is GRID. GRID. Make sure you submit your bracket before the drop of the green flag on Sunday in wine country. Good luck, everyone. Looking forward to competing against you all.
And we are getting ready for that because I still don't understand it. It's the second year of the challenge, and because I'm British, we don't have that style of tournament here, so I'm still trying to catch up and see how it was. So if you want an easy win, you'll probably beat me. I'm going to have someone explain it to me, and I'm going to get it ready for this weekend, and we'll have it all on the watch-along commentary as well. And I'm sure in the wrap-up shows, you guys will be giving us all the information as well about what's happening. So let's turn our attention then to pick a winner for this week as well. As you can see, at the moment, it's still Matthew Bros at the top on 36. Kobe is on 31. Matt is on 20. And I'm still in 9th place on 9 as well. And Keisha is down on 5. And hello, Sam, as well. A friend of mine is down there on 2. Omi's on 2. Matthew Owen's only on 2 as well. So if you want to go on the board, you can join by simply using hashtag #PickAWinner on our Grid Network socials. You can do it in the comments, and we will get them on the board if you pick a winner correctly. For you to choose from tonight, we're going to start with the WRC from Acropolis as well, the Rally Greece. And, well, it's pretty much a pick and mix for me, isn't it, Kobe, who doesn't pick the championship too well. So I'm going to go for Elfyn Evans in the Toyota Yaris number 33, who topped the shakedown at the moment before we get into stage 1 tomorrow. Who have you got?
I know I always say this to Matt, but I promise I'm not trying to copy you, Josh. I'm going with Elfyn Evans to win the Acropolis Rally Greece. Like, I'm not picking him for no particular reason. I just have a gut feeling that this is going to be his weekend and that he's going to get it done. I know with Sebastian Ogier in the field, a lot of people, be easy to pick him, but where he's been formed at this year compared to, the last year or the last few years, it hasn't been on the same level. So I think I'm going to go with Elfyn Evans to get the Greece.
Slightly easier one for me now to come in. It's the MotoGP sprint race at Assen. And for this one, I'm going to pick a pretty unlikely one. I'm going to pick Pecco Bagnaia, who's just announced he's leaving Ducati, as we talked about earlier on the show. He's on a run of form at the moment, and a sprint at Assen is his type of circuit. Who have you got, Kobe?
Yeah, it would not be a surprise given how he's run lately, and since he just won the sprint race a week ago. It's really crazy how these things happen, because you'll see a driver announce they're leaving a certain team, and all of a sudden all the pressure to perform for them is all, and then you can just race freely. So I will not be surprised to see Pecco take the sprint, but I'm actually gonna go with his teammate Marc Marquez to keep the good times rolling, and we're gonna have to keep the Jaws music because he's gonna get a lot closer to the Aprilia duo at the top of the championship.
And finally, we've got the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as well. The 6 hours at the Glen. Watkins Glen is now our home. And don't forget, we've got quite a lot of people over as well at the Spa 24 hours. So Watkins Glen has really been sort of slotted in at the wrong time. But coming in for this, I think it's safe to say that we could see the V-Line Engineering Squad go for one. That's my pick with Jack Aitken, who's just announced that he and Alex are expecting their first baby as friends. Congratulations. Kobe, who have you got?
Yeah, I think that's a good pick there with the number 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac, considering the fact that they also, just won on the streets of Detroit before the Le Mans break. I think Jack Aitken, Earl Bamber, Frederick Vesti going to be a good trio to watch out for. But the BMWs always seem to perform well at this track, so I'm going to go with the number 24 BMW, the Team WRT. I think Dries Van Thor and Sheldon van der Linde going to get the job done at the Glen.
No hots and nots tonight as well, because no Matt White to bounce ideas off with as well. So that will return when he returns. But do let us know before we finish tonight what your hots and nots were for the weekend, and I'll read them out after we've finished this little section, because we're going to take a look at our upcoming schedule. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship race at Watkins Glen International. Monday, Grid Rising is at 7:15 Eastern, PM that is, recapping O'Reilly and ARCA West at Sonoma, and then ARCA National at Elko, Formula 2 and Formula 3 also at Austria, plus other motorsport action. Please do consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And if you like what you saw tonight, you can send us a super chat to show your appreciation. We've now passed 1,800 subscribers. You can help us reach our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air, and follow all of our social media platforms, and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon or a YouTube channel membership. You can join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin, David, Matthew, Crystal, Nico, and Gloria, who all invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these great group of people that keep us on the air all year long. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue growing our media outlet. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. Now, Adam's come in as well saying, pick a winner as well. WRC in Greece for Elfyn Evans, MotoGP Sprint for Marc Marquez, IMSA Watkins Glen, the number 31 V-Line engineering car. Good picks all round as well coming into it. Adam says, what's hot? It was Heim time in San Diego. NASCAR overall at San Diego. I agree with you there. San Diego was a huge success. I hope we get to see it next year as well. Maybe cut the laps down a little bit so it's less stages, especially for O'Reilly and trucks, because it was a bit long and, you know, the barriers need a bit of work. But all in all, a huge success. Fantastic event. SVG not in contention in San Diego. Yeah, that was definitely a not as well. That crash he had coming out of turn one, collecting up with Austin Dillon and Carson Hosfeld coming in there as well, and Conor Zilic all getting up in the mix as well. Time to remember what was happening there on Sunday. It was such a long, busy race. But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic weekend. I think NASCAR knocked it out of the park. Thanks for all your comments tonight. Thanks to Kobe Lambeth. I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you very much for watching. Best wishes to Matt White and his family. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.